From finally snatching back his world #1 title to being compared to LeBron James, Novak Djokovic may have defeated Carlos Alcaraz, but it doesn't make him the GOAT. As you might have heard, the Serb recently became world #1 yet again, thanks to his win at the 2023 French Open, and to most people, it didn't come as a surprise. Why? Because we all know the Serbinator collects trophies like clockwork. But this time, it was different, and with his final win at Roland Garros, Novak finally snatched his #1 title back from Carlos. Back in 2022, the Spaniard shook the tennis world when he took the title from Novak and became the youngest world #1 in history. But nothing good lasts forever, and neither did Carlos's reign at the top. Because if there's one thing we know about Novak, especially from his anti-vax drama, it's that he doesn't give up, and that's exactly what he did. The Serb bounced back in no time, beating Alcaraz at the semis, and then he duked it out with Casper Ruud in the final. A lot of folks, including myself, were expecting it to be a close match because Ruud has 10 ATP titles, a killer forehand, and he's a force to be reckoned with. But as fate would have it, after a shaky start, Novak pulled himself together and clinched his 23rd Grand Slam with a 7-6, 6-3, and 7-5 win. Like I said, winning is old news for Novak, but this time it was special because with his 23 titles, he broke a tie with Rafael Nadal for the most trophies in the history of men's tennis. That's right, Novak's third title at Roland Garros now adds to his 10 Australian Open trophies, 7 Wimbledons, and 3 US Open wins, to break Nadal's record of 22 singles titles. Did you know that Novak's now the most awarded man in tennis? So it's safe to say that with this lifetime achievement and beating the youngest world #1 ever, that Novak skyrocketed his chances of being crowned the GOAT. And with Federer gone and Rafa on the bench, it doesn't look like anyone can stop him. But despite his achievements, fans aren't ready to call him the king, mainly because of his bad rep. He might be a legend on the court, but Novak's never been a fan favorite, and people are always more than happy to tear him down. Remember Carlitos' #1 title? It was a good time for Carlos, but not for Novak, who became the target of massive scrutiny. Fans immediately booted him from the GOAT debate, saying his time was over, and all eyes turned to the young Spaniard instead, who is rumored to lead the next era of tennis. If it was any other guy with the same amount of titles, there's no way people would treat him so badly. But we're talking about Novak here, and the guy's one of the most booed players I've ever seen. There's a lot of reasons why he's not a fan favorite, but for starters, he ended the golden era of prime Rafa and Federer. From 2003 to 2009, Federer was the undisputed king of tennis. You couldn't get a single win against the guy unless you were Rafa, and man, did people love to see their heated rivalries. But all of that changed when Novak showed up, with his run-of-the-mill playing style and controversial personality. Novak's also caught some flack for his family's questionable comments, like the time his mom called Federer arrogant. Right. I think there's a better chance of me owning a pet unicorn. Besides all that though, the biggest reason why Novak's the black sheep is his on-court attitude, because trust me, with his racket smashes and temper tantrums, it's really hard to like the guy. He's known for winning and whining, and takes on judges all the time, not to mention his suspiciously timed breaks, which have a history of pissing his opponents right off. There's also his rogue tennis association, which even Nadal called out, and he's like the nicest guy on the planet. And let's not forget his anti-vax fiasco, where he took on the Aussie government instead of just getting the jab. Sure, he has a right not to get vaxxed, it's a personal choice, but taking on the Australian government and trying to get them to change their policies was a total waste of time. And speaking of arrogance, his decision to challenge them reeks of it. Did he really expect them to bend to his will? I think the Serbinator nickname's gone right to his head. But his personality isn't the only thing that gets in the way of his greatness. It's also his rivals. When it comes to choosing its legends, tennis has a history of icons to pick from, like Bjorn Borg, Pete Sampras, John McEnroe. But to stay current, I want to talk about modern legends. For starters, there's Carlos the Crown Prince and Boy Wonder. He's an insane talent, but at only 20 years old, it's too early to include him in the debate among the Big Three's decades of dominance. So that leaves us with the trio of Noel, Nadal, and Federer. If we're talking numbers, sure, Novak leads in Grand Slam titles, with 23 compared to Rafa's 22 and the Fed's 20. But numbers can lie, because when you look at the difference in eras, Novak played on a completely different court. Federer's prime was from 2003 to 2009, But Novak's was from 2011 to 2016, so pitting them against each other in 2023 doesn't mean squat. On top of that, Novak might have won 8 slams since 2019, but that was when Federer was injured, so we'll never know if King Roger could have stopped him. The same goes for Rafa, who missed the French Open where Novak broke their Grand Slam tie. What I'm saying is, it's impossible to compare players from different eras. It's like comparing LeBron James and Michael Jordan. Sure, you can look at the numbers, but they don't mean much when you consider the fact that they were basically playing in 2 totally different eras. And if you're looking for tennis's top dog, you can't stop at peak performance, because you have to consider their best court too. When it comes to strong suits, I'd split the big 3 majors between the big 3 players. Novak's the king of the Australian Open, and after winning 10 Happy Slam finals, the guy holds the Aussie court's all-time record. The same goes for Nadal. The French Open is Rafa's home country, and from 2005 to 2017, the King of Clays kicked more butts there than I can count, including Novak's. When it comes to Federer, it's no secret that he's Wimbledon's favorite son, winning it more times than any other player. In fact, the Swiss maestros ruled on the grass his whole career, even beating a 25-year-old Novak there, when he was 31. With that said, it all comes down to the US Open, which is where Rafa falls short. Now hear me out, I'd never write off the 2010 or 2014 Flushing Meadows Nadal, but with the Fed and Novak's cement wizardry, it's hard to favor him. And when it comes to the Fed and Novak, their history in New York is absolutely crazy. Remember Roger's tweener in 2009? Or those back-to-back 2010 and 2011 semifinal wins by the Serb? Both of them gave fans unforgettable tennis. But if I had to choose a winner, it'd be King Roger, because he's not only the king of Wimbledon, but America too. Throughout his 20s, Federer was the US Open's benchmark. Remember his 5-year win streak from 2004 to 2008? Talk about a wild run. Not to mention in 2010 and 11, when he gave Noel a run for his money. The Serb might have won those matches, but with the Fed at his throat, it could have easily gone the other way, which gives us an obvious favorite for both the US Open and the GOAT debate. Federer's more than just his tennis skills because he's also a winner off court. Did you know that he even replies to fan letters? I'm not kidding. The guy may be the king of tennis, but he's ruling hearts with his kindness too. For many folks, myself included, Fed's grace and humility make him extremely likable and are the main reason he's the face of the sport. According to Serena Williams, Roger's the very definition of greatness and class, which is hard to say about Novak, who's been swarmed by controversy year after year. From his racket smashing to his COVID parties, it's safe to say that the Serb is tied in on-court wins and off-court shenanigans, which makes it hard to pick him over Federer. Because of this, the Serbinator's far from being the GOAT, both in performance and personality, and it's not just me saying it, take it from the guy himself. After his French Open win, the media was quick to pass judgment on the Serb, taking Noel away from tennis altogether and comparing him to LeBron James instead. After becoming the highest ever NBA point scorer, LeBron called himself the best basketball player to ever live. And from the looks of Novak's jacket with a huge 23 on it, it felt like Novak was going to say the same. But surprisingly, when asked for his own take on his greatness, the guy defied all expectations, admitting that he could never be the greatest. He even called it disrespectful to give him the title and mentioned that different eras had different greats, which is why he leaves the choice up to today's fans. Novak's statement might come as a surprise, but that doesn't make it any less true. And if you ask me, it ends the debate once and for all. So, from being compared to LeBron James to finally snatching back his world #1 title, Novak Djokovic may have defeated Carlos Alcaraz, but that doesn't make him the GOAT.